I ain't the kind of guy who gets mad easy. Life's too short for that, you know? I work my job, pay my bills, love my wife, and try to keep the peace. But sometimes, peace ain't an option. Sometimes, folks push you till you got no choice but to push back. That's how it started with my brother's wedding. One message, one cold, gut punch of a sentence, and everything I thought I knew about family went up in smoke. It was a Tuesday night, just another evening at home. Me and my wife, Sarah, were in the kitchen. I was flipping through my phone, checking emails, when a notification popped up in the family group chat. Danny's big day crew, they called it, like we were planning a Super Bowl party instead of a wedding. My younger brother, Danny, was getting hitched to his fiancée, Kayla, and the whole family was in on it. Mom, Dad, our cousin Nate, Aunt Linda, you name it. I'd been footing the bill for most of it, too. Not bragging, just facts. 25 grand, give or take, wired over the past 6 months for the venue, the band, the open bar, even some fancy ice sculpture Kayla swore she needed. I didn't mind much. Danny's my brother, and I've always been the guy who steps up. So, I tapped the chat, expecting another update about table settings or whatever. Instead, I saw a message from Kayla, sitting there like a landmine. Please attend without Sarah. 5 words. No greeting, no explanation, just that. I stared at it, thinking maybe I'd read it wrong. I blinked, read it again. Nope, still there, clear as day. Please attend without Sarah. Like my wife of 8 years was some +1 that could uninvite without a second thought. I set my phone down on the counter, real slow. My hands weren't shaking. I wasn't yelling. I was just still. Too still, like the air got heavy. Sarah was at the sink, drying a plate, humming some tune I couldn't place. She glanced over, caught my face, and stopped. What's wrong, Tom? You look like you saw a ghost. I didn't say nothing at first. Just slid the phone toward her. She frowned, picked it up, and read the message. Her face didn't change much, just a little tightening around her mouth, like she was biting back something sharp. She handed the phone back and crossed her arms. Well, she said, voice low, guess they finally showed their hand. I nodded. What are you gonna do? She asked, leaning against the counter. I opened the chat, scrolled to the bottom, and hit Leave Group. The app asked if I was sure. I was. I'm doing what they want, I said, meeting her eyes. I ain't bringing you. Her brow lifted. You're going alone? Nah, I said, tossing the phone onto the table. We ain't going at all. She let out a breath, looked away for a second, then back at me. I knew they didn't like me, Tom. I just didn't think they'd write it down for the world to see. Me neither, I admitted. But they did. For months, I'd been the guy with the checkbook and no say. Danny called me crying about how tight money was, how Kayla deserved her dream wedding. Mom chimed in, you're the steady one, Tom. Dad piled on, it's your brother's big day. He's never asked for much. That was a lie, but I let it slide. So, I paid. The banquet hall, the string quartet, the custom cocktails, hell, even the dessert bar with those little chocolate fountains. $25,000, and they took it with big smiles and thank yous. Then, they turned around and told me my wife wasn't good enough to show up. Why? 'Cause Sarah don't play their games. She's real, always has been. Doesn't fake laugh at Kayla's snide comments or nod along when Mom starts her lectures about proper wives. Maybe it was that time Sarah called Kayla out at Thanksgiving, asking, are you marrying Danny 'cause you love him, or 'cause he's got a good job? The table went quiet, and Kayla's face turned red. Sarah didn't back down, just sipped her wine. Yeah, that probably sealed it. But Sarah never complained. She just took it, kept her head high, and loved me through it all. Now, she stood there, staring at the floor. I'm sorry, Tom, she said, voice soft. I know you wanted to be there for Danny. Don't apologize, I said, sharper than I meant. They don't get to treat you like this and expect me to show up with a smile. She looked up, I searching mine. You sure about this? I'm sure, I said. We're staying home. Then I grinned, just a little. But I ain't done with that wedding yet. Sarah tilted her head, curious. What's that mean? Let's just say I got one last gift for him. See, I'd paid for everything, including the big showstopper, the dessert bar. Kayla wanted it to be the talk of the town, fancy pastries, gold-dusted truffles, the works. I'd signed off on the final design a week ago, but now I had an idea. A little change, nothing major, just enough to make sure Danny and Kayla's big day was memorable. The wedding went on without us. From what I heard, it was a spectacle. Crystal chandeliers, white roses everywhere, guests in suits and dresses like they were at the Oscars. Danny looked sharp, Kayla glowed like a movie star, and Mom and Dad beamed like they'd won the lottery. Everything was perfect, right up until the dessert bar rolled out. That's when my phone started buzzing. One call, then 5, then 20, then 50. Mom, Danny, Kayla, even Aunt Linda, who once told me I was too boring for Sarah. I didn't answer. Just sat on the couch with Sarah, poured us each a beer, and raised my bottle. To Danny's big day, I said. She clinked her bottle against mine, smirking. To Danny's big day. I've never been the guy who makes waves. Growing up, I was the one who mowed the lawn without being asked, helped Dad fix the truck, and made sure Danny didn't flunk math. Mom called me dependable, like it was my job to keep everyone else from falling apart. I didn't mind it back then. Felt good to be needed. But looking back, I see it for what it was, a trap. Once you're the good guy, the steady one, people don't just expect you to help, they expect you to bleed for them. And I did, for years, without even noticing the cuts. After I left the family group chat, I sat there in the living room, staring at the blank TV screen. Sarah was on the couch, flipping through a magazine, but I could tell she wasn't reading. Her eyes were too still, like she was waiting for me to say something. I didn't have words yet. My phone kept buzzing texts from Mom, voicemails from Danny, even a message from Kayla's sister, Tara, saying, "You're overreacting." I turned it off. First time in years I'd gone silent on them. Felt weird, like cutting a rope I'd been holding forever. "Tom," Sarah said finally, setting the magazine down. "You don't have to explain it to me. I get it. But you sure you're okay?" I leaned back in my chair, running a hand through my hair. "I don't know," I said. "I'm not mad, not really. Just tired. Tired of being the guy who says yes." She nodded, like she'd been waiting for me to figure that out. "They've been leaning on you since we met. Probably before that." She wasn't wrong. It started way back, when I was barely out of high school. I got a job at the hardware store, then moved up to manager, then landed a gig at a construction firm. Decent money, nothing fancy, but enough to buy a house, marry Sarah, and start a life. Meanwhile, Danny was the dreamer. Always had a new plan, music producer, fitness coach, some app he swore would make millions. Every plan crashed, and every crash landed on me. I'd pay his phone bill, cover his rent, even bailed him out when he got caught driving without insurance. "You're the rock, Tom," Dad would say. "Danny's just finding his way." Finding his way meant leaning on me. When he met Kayla, I thought maybe he'd settle down. She seemed nice at first, big smile, quick to hug, always posting about gratitude online. But Sarah saw through her from day one. "She's not real," Sarah told me after our first dinner with him. "All that sweetness? It's a mask." I brushed it off. Figured Sarah was just being cautious. But then Kayla started dropping hints. Little comments about Sarah's job as a nurse must be so exhausting, wiping noses all day. Or her clothes. "It's cute how you don't care about brands." Sarah never took the bait, just smiled and changed the subject. I should have listened to her sooner. When Danny proposed to Kayla, the whole family acted like it was a national holiday. Mom cried, Dad slapped Danny's back, and I got a call the next day. "We're short on the deposit for the venue," Danny said, voice all sheepish. "Can you help?" I sent the money. Then it was the catering. Then the photographer. Before I knew it, I dropped $25,000 on a wedding I wasn't even sure I wanted to attend. Every time I hesitated, Mom would call. "It's for Danny," she'd say. "You know how much this means to him. Guilt's a hell of a drug." But that message, "Please attend without Sarah," changed everything. It wasn't just about Sarah, though that was bad enough. It was about me. How I'd let them treat me like a doormat, like my only job was to pay up and shut up. I thought about all the times I'd said yes when I wanted to say no. All the checks I wrote, all the favors I did, all the times I let Danny slide when he promised to pay me back next month. Next month never came. I looked over at Sarah. She was watching me, her face soft but steady. "What's going through your head?" she asked. "I'm done," I said, and it felt like a weight lifted. Done being their bank, their fixer, their punching bag. Done. She smiled, just a little. "Good. About time." But I wasn't just done. I had one last thing to do. See, I'd paid for that dessert bar at Kayla's pride and joy. She'd sent me a whole binder about it, full of pictures and notes. "It has to be spectacular," she'd said. "Something people will never forget." I'd signed off on it, wired the money, even got a confirmation email from the bakery. But now, sitting there with Sarah, I remembered something. The bakery owner had said, "If you need any tweaks, just let me know by Friday." It was Wednesday. I pulled out my laptop, opened the email, and stared at the dessert bar plan. Towers of pastries, gold-dusted macarons, a chocolate fountain with crystal bowls. Perfect, just like Kayla wanted. Too perfect. I picked up my phone, dialed the bakery, and got the owner on the line. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice calm. "About that dessert bar for the Miller wedding? I've got a small change in mind." He listened, didn't ask too many questions. I hung up, feeling something I hadn't felt in years: control. Sarah caught my eye from the couch. "What did you do?" she asked, suspicious. "Nothing big," I said, leaning back with a grin. "Just making sure it's a day they'll talk about forever." The next day, I didn't check my phone. Didn't want to hear Mom's excuses or Danny's whining. Instead, I took Sarah out for breakfast, pancakes at the diner we used to hit when we were dating. We laughed, talked about nothing important, and for the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about what my family needed. I was thinking about us. But that night, the wedding happened. I didn't need to be there to know it was a big deal. Kayla had been posting about it for weeks. Hashtag Miller wedding, hashtag love wins, all that jazz. I could picture it, the fancy venue, the string lights, Danny in a tux, Kayla in a dress that probably cost more than my truck. Everything planned to the last detail, just like she wanted. And then, right on schedule, my phone lit up. Not one call, not two, dozens. Missed calls from Mom, Dad, Danny, Kayla, even Tara, who'd probably never dialed my number before. Voicemails piled up, texts too. "What the hell, Tom? This is your fault. You ruined everything." I didn't listen, didn't read. Just poured myself a coffee, sat on the porch with Sarah, and watched the stars. Whatever happened at that wedding, I knew one thing. I'd made my mark. I've always liked quiet nights. The kind where you can hear crickets outside, maybe a dog barking a street over. That's what I was aiming for the night of Danny's wedding. Me and Sarah, just chilling at home, letting the world spin without us. But when my phone started blowing up, call after call, text after text, I knew something had gone down. I didn't check it right away. Didn't need to. I'd set something in motion, and whatever was happening at that fancy venue was exactly what I'd paid for. Sarah was on the couch, legs tucked under her, sipping a glass of red wine. She put on some old country playlist, low enough to feel cozy. I was in the kitchen, grabbing a beer from the fridge when the first call came. Then another. By the 10th, Sarah looked over, eyebrow raised. "You gonna see who that is?" she asked. "Nope," I said, popping the cap off my bottle. "They can wait." She smirked, like she knew I was up to something but wasn't gonna push. "That's Sarah for you. She trusts me, even when I'm playing my cards close." I sat down next to her, took a long pull of my beer, and tried to focus on the music. But my phone kept buzzing, vibrating across the coffee table like it was possessed. Finally, Sarah reached over, flipped it to silent, and tossed it onto a cushion. "There," she said. "Now tell me what you did." I grinned, couldn't help it. "You'll see. Let's just say the dessert bar's gonna steal the show." Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't press. Instead, she leaned back, swirling her wine. "Whatever it is, I hope it's worth the storm coming our way." The storm was already here. I just didn't know the details yet. See, I'd called the bakery a couple days ago, told them to tweak the dessert bar. Nothing crazy, just a little flair. Kayla wanted spectacular, right? She'd sent me a whole spiel about how it had to be the centerpiece of the reception, something to make every guest whip out their phones and post online. Gold-dusted macarons, mini cheesecakes, a chocolate fountain with edible pearls. She'd planned it like a military operation. I'd nodded along, sent the money, and let her think I was just the quiet brother who'd do whatever she asked. But after that message, "Please attend without Sarah," I wasn't feeling so quiet anymore. So, I told the bakery to keep most of it the same. Same gold dust, same fancy pastries. But I added one thing, something to make sure nobody forgot that night. I didn't tell Sarah the whole plan, not yet. Wanted to see it play out first, maybe catch it on someone's Instagram story later. I figured it'd be a laugh, a way to stick it to them without starting a fist fight. But as the calls kept piling up, I started wondering if I'd gone bigger than I meant to. Around 9 o'clock, Sarah's phone started ringing. She glanced at the screen, frowned, and showed it to me. It was Tara, Kayla's sister. "What's she want?" I said. "Probably to yell at you through me," Sarah muttered. She let it go to voicemail, but a text came through right after. "Tom, this isn't funny. Fix this now." Sarah read it out loud, then looked at me. "Fix what?" I shrugged, but my stomach did a little flip. Not nerves, exactly, more like the feeling you get when you're waiting for fireworks to go off. "Guess we'll find out," I said. We didn't have to wait long. About an hour later, Sarah's cousin, Jen, sent her a video clip. Jen wasn't at the wedding, but someone must have forwarded it to her. Sarah opened it, and I leaned over to watch. The video was shaky, clearly shot on a phone, but it showed the reception hall in all its glory. Twinkling lights, white tablecloths, Kayla in her dress looking like she'd stepped out of a magazine. The crowd was gathered around the dessert bar, clapping as the servers wheeled it out. The music swelled, some sappy love song, and Kayla stepped forward, smiling so wide you'd think she'd won the lottery. Then it happened. The dessert bar was perfect, just like she wanted, towers of pastries, sparkling under the lights. But at the center, where the chocolate fountain was supposed to be, there was something else. A giant cake, not on the menu, shaped like a cartoonish piggy bank. It was painted bright pink, with dollar signs all over it and a big slot at the top. As Kayla reached for a pastry, the cake started shaking. The crowd went quiet. Then boom, the top popped open, and out came a guy in a full-on dollar bill costume. Green suit, fake money taped everywhere, and a sign around his neck that read, "Thanks for the loan." He started dancing, tossing glittery fake cash into the air while a speaker inside the cake blared, "Money, money, money," in a goofy voice. The video caught Kayla's face shock, then rage, then tears. Danny just stood there, mouth open, like he'd forgotten how to blink. The crowd was a mix of gasps and giggles, phones filming every second. Mom tried to grab the dollar bill guy, shouting something about ruining the moment, but he just kept dancing, tossing more fake money. Then, get this, 2 mechanical piggy banks on either side of the cake started spitting out confetti shaped like tiny checks, each one stamped with "Paid by Tom." Sarah burst out laughing, nearly dropped her phone. "Tom," she said, wiping her eyes. "You didn't." "I did," I said, leaning back with a grin. "Told you it'd be memorable." She watched the video again, shaking her head. "They're gonna lose it. You know that, right?" "Let them," I said. They wanted a show. I gave him one. The calls didn't stop. By midnight, I had 72 missed ones: Mom, Dad, Danny, Kayla, Tara, even Uncle Mike, who I hadn't talked to since last Christmas. Voicemails piled up, but I didn't listen. Texts too. "You're a jerk, Tom. This was supposed to be our day. How could you humiliate us?" I didn't care. For the first time in years, I wasn't worried about what they thought. I'd spent $25,000 to make their dream come true, and they'd repaid me by telling me my wife wasn't welcome. If they wanted to cry about a dancing dollar bill, that was their problem. Sarah put her phone down, slid closer to me on the couch. You okay? She asked, her voice soft. Yeah, I said, and I meant it. Better than okay. She smiled, rested her head on my shoulder. Good. 'Cause I think you just started a war. I laughed, clinked my beer against her wine glass. To Danny and Kayla, I said. Hope they enjoyed the tip. Morning after the wedding felt different. Not bad, just new. Like waking up in a house you've lived in forever, but noticing the walls ain't the same color you thought. Sunlight crept through the blinds, hitting the kitchen table where me and Sarah were eating breakfast. I had my coffee, black, and a plate of eggs. She was picking at a bagel, scrolling through her phone, when she let out a low whistle. Tom, she said, turning the screen toward me. You're famous. I leaned over, squinting at the video. Same clip from last night, the piggy bank cake, the dollar bill dancer, the confetti checks with my name on them. Someone had posted it online, and it was blowing up. Thousands of likes, hundreds of comments. Hashtag #MoneyShotWedding, the caption read. People were eating it up, calling it epic and savage. A few even tagged me, though I ain't got no social media anymore. Deleted all that years ago when Danny kept asking me to promote his business ideas. I pushed the phone back to Sarah. Guess they got their spectacle, I said, taking a sip of coffee. She grinned, but there was worry in her eyes. They're not gonna let this go, you know. Your mom's probably writing a speech right now. She wasn't wrong. My phone was still off, but I could feel the storm brewing. I'd ignored 72 missed calls last night, plus texts I didn't bother reading. Sooner or later, someone was gonna show up at our door, and it wouldn't be to say thanks. I wasn't scared, though. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. See, I've spent my whole life smoothing things over. When Danny was a kid, he'd break stuff. Toys, windows, promises, and I'd be the one cleaning up. Tom'll fix it, Dad would say, like it was my job. Mom was worse. She'd look at me with those sad eyes, saying, Danny's sensitive. He needs you. Sensitive meant lazy, but I didn't see it then. I just kept fixing, kept paying, kept saying yes. Got so used to it. I didn't even notice when it bled into my adult life. Car repairs, bar tabs. That time Danny borrowed $2,000 for a DJ gig that never happened. I covered it all. Never asked for a thank you. Never got one either. Sarah saw it clear as day. First time she met my family, she pulled me aside after dinner. They treat you like a bank, she said, not mad, just stating facts. I laughed it off. That's just how they are, I told her. Family helps family. She didn't argue, but her look said enough. She was patient, though. Sat through Mom's lectures about how Sarah should dress fancier for family dinners. Took Kayla's backhanded compliments. It's so sweet how you don't care about trends. Even when Danny crashed our vacation plans by tagging along uninvited, Sarah just rolled with it. She didn't complain, didn't fight, just held my hand and waited for me to catch up. That message, please attend without Sarah, was the wake-up call. It wasn't just about her, though that burned plenty. It was about how they saw me. A wallet, a yes man, someone who'd take the hit and keep smiling. I'd spent $25,000 on Danny's wedding, and they couldn't even pretend to respect my wife. That's when I knew, being the good guy wasn't worth it anymore. By noon, the doorbell rang. I knew who it was before I opened it. Mom stood there, arms crossed, lips tight like she'd rehearsed her lines. Dad was behind her, looking at his shoes like they held the secrets to the universe. We need to talk, Mom said, pushing past me into the living room. I shut the door, slow, and followed. Sarah stayed in the kitchen, out of sight. She didn't need to hear this, and I didn't want her to. Mom spun around, eyes blazing. What you did last night was cruel, Thomas. Cruel and selfish. I leaned against the wall, hands in my pockets. Cruel was telling me to leave my wife at home, I said, keeping my voice even. Selfish was taking my money and thinking you could call the shots. Her face went red. That's not what happened. Kayla was stressed. She made a mistake. A mistake. I cut in. She typed it, sent it, and didn't say sorry. That ain't a mistake, Mom. That's a choice. Dad finally looked up. Tom, we didn't know about the message till after. You could have talked to us. I shook my head. Talk to you? Like when I talked to you about Danny's loans. Or his car. Or the wedding I paid for. When's the last time you listened? Mom threw her hands up. You humiliated your brother. That ridiculous stunt with the cake and the dancer. Everyone's laughing at us. Kayla's devastated. Danny's a mess. Good, I said, and I meant it. They wanted a big show. I gave him one. Mom stared at me like I'd grown horns. You're not my son right now, she said, voice shaking. My son wouldn't do this. Maybe not, I said. But your son's done being your ATM. Dad stepped forward, trying to play peacemaker. Let's calm down, okay? We're family. We can fix this. I looked at him, really looked. You don't fix what's been broken this long. You didn't stop that message, Dad. You didn't stop Danny from leaning on me my whole life. You don't get to fix it now. Mom grabbed her purse, headed for the door. You're making a mistake, she said, not turning around. You'll regret this. I didn't answer. Dad gave me one last glance, half sad, half guilty, then followed her out. The door clicked shut, and the house went quiet again. Sarah stepped into the living room, drying her hands on a dish towel. You all right? She asked. Yeah, I said, sinking onto the couch. Just figuring out what family means now. She sat next to me, rested her head on my shoulder. You did good, Tom. Stood your ground. I nodded, but my mind was already turning. The video was out there, spreading like wildfire. By evening, it had hit 1 million views. People were remixing it, adding music, making memes. #MoneyShotWedding was trending, and I couldn't help but laugh. Kayla wanted unforgettable. She got it. But something told me this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. That night, I checked my phone for the first time. 94 missed calls now, plus texts I didn't read. But one message caught my eye, from an unknown number. You're not the only one they played. Check your mail. No name, no context, just that. I showed it to Sarah, and her brow furrowed. What's that mean? She asked. No clue, I said, setting the phone down. But I got a feeling we're about to find out. I ain't one for mysteries. Never like those TV shows where folks dig through clues, chasing shadows. Life's complicated enough without playing detective. But that text, you're not the only one they played. Check your mail stuck in my head like a song I couldn't shake. I didn't know who sent it, didn't know what it meant, but it felt like a warning. Or maybe a door cracking open, showing me something I'd been too blind to see. Next morning, I was up before Sarah. Made coffee, fed the dog, and checked the mailbox out front. Sure enough, there was an envelope, no stamp, no return address. Just my name, Tom Miller, scrawled in black ink. I stood there a minute, turning it over in my hands. Felt heavier than it should have, like it wasn't just paper inside. I took it back to the kitchen, sat at the table, and slid it open with a butter knife. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded neat, and a small USB drive taped to it. The paper had one line, Danny's not who you think. I stared at it, my coffee going cold. Sarah came downstairs, hair messy from sleep, and saw me holding the envelope. What's that? She asked, pouring herself a mug. Don't know yet, I said, showing her the note. Got this last night, too. I pulled up the text from the unknown number. She read it, then looked at the USB drive, her eyes narrowing. You gonna plug it in? She said. Thinking about it, I replied. Could be trouble. Could be answers, she countered, sitting across from me. Only one way to find out. I grabbed my laptop, plugged in the drive, and opened it. One folder, labeled Truth. Inside were files, screenshots, audio clips, bank records, even a couple photos. I clicked the first screenshot, a text chain between Danny and some guy named Greg. I didn't know Greg, but the messages hit like a punch. Don't worry, man, Danny wrote. Tom's good for it. He always pays up. Greg replied. You sure? That's a lot of cash. Danny's response. He's my brother. He won't say no. I scrolled through more. Emails from Danny to Kayla, planning the wedding, but also something else, a side hustle. Looked like Danny was funneling money from the wedding budget into a business deal with Greg. Fake invoices, padded costs, even a receipt for a DJ that never showed up. I'd paid for it all, thinking it was for the big day, but half the cash was going somewhere else. Then there was an audio file, Danny's voice clear as day. Kayla's just the face. Once we lock this down, we're set. Tom will cover the rest, like always. Sarah listened over my shoulder, her face hard. They played you, she said, not a question. Yeah, I said, clicking a photo. It was Danny and Greg, shaking hands outside a bar, both grinning like they'd won the lottery. Timestamp showed it was 2 weeks before the wedding, right after I'd wired another $5,000 for last-minute expenses. I leaned back, rubbing my eyes. It wasn't just the money, though $25,000 ain't pocket change. It was the betrayal. Danny wasn't just leaning on me. He was building a whole damn scheme on my back. And Kayla? She wasn't just along for the ride. She was driving. The wedding was a cover, a way to bleed me dry while they played house and planned their next move. What now? Sarah asked, her voice steady but quiet. I didn't answer right away. Kept scrolling, found a final file. A bank transfer from Danny to Greg, dated the day after the wedding. $10,000, labeled consulting fee. My money, still flowing even after that stunt with the dessert bar. I closed the laptop, stood up, and paced the kitchen. I could send this to the cops, I said. Fraud, theft, something. Sarah shook her head. Cops won't care about family drama. You'd spend years in court for nothing. She was right. I stopped pacing, looked out the window. The street was quiet, kids riding bikes, normal life going on. But inside, I was boiling, not loud, not yelling, just a slow burn. Then I take it to Danny, I said finally. Face to face. Sarah raised an eyebrow. You sure? He'll lie his way out. Let him try, I said. He's done talking his way around me. Finding Danny wasn't hard. He wasn't at the fancy hotel where he and Kayla were supposed to be honeymooning. Tara let slip he was crashing at a buddy's place downtown. I drove over that afternoon, the envelope and USB drive in my passenger seat. Didn't call ahead, didn't want him prepping excuses. When I knocked, he opened the door, looking rough, red eyes, unshaved, like he hadn't slept since the wedding. Tom, he said, surprised. What are you doing here? I didn't smile, just held up the envelope. We gotta talk. He let me in, reluctant, and we sat in a cramped living room that smelled like old pizza. I tossed the envelope on the coffee table. Open it, I said. He frowned, pulled out the note first, then the USB. What's this? Proof, I said, leaning forward. Proof you and Kayla used me. Proof you've been lying for months, maybe years. Proof you're a thief. His face went pale, but he tried to laugh it off. Come on, man, what are you talking about? This some kind of prank, like that stupid cake thing. I didn't blink. Plug it in. See for yourself. He didn't move, just stared at the drive like it might bite him. Look, Tom, I don't know what you think you found. Stop, I cut him off. I saw the texts, heard the recordings. You and Greg, skimming my money, playing me like a fool. You gonna tell me that's fake? He swallowed hard, looked away. It's not what it looks like, he mumbled. Then what is it? I said, voice low. 'Cause it looks like you sold me out for a quick buck. He didn't answer, just rubbed his hands together, nervous. I stood up, grabbed the envelope. I'm not here to argue, Danny. I'm here to tell you it's over. No more loans, no more favors. You're on your own. He looked up, eyes wide. You're my brother, Tom. You can't just cut me off. Watch me, I said, heading for the door. I didn't look back. That night, I showed Sarah everything. She read the files, listened to the audio, and when she was done, she hugged me tight. You did the right thing, she said. But what about Kayla? I thought about it, staring at the USB drive on the table. She gets her own surprise, I said. Soon. I've never been one for revenge. Growing up, if Danny swiped my stuff or mouthed off, I'd let it slide. Figured holding grudges was a waste of energy. But after seeing those files, Danny's texts, his deals with Greg, the way him and Kayla turned my money into their personal piggy bank, something shifted. It wasn't about getting even, not exactly. It was about drawing a line. They crossed it, and I wasn't gonna let Kayla waltz away thinking she'd won. The days after my talk with Danny were quiet, but not the good kind. Like the hush before a storm, when you know the sky's about to split open. I kept the USB drive locked in my desk drawer, but its weight followed me everywhere. Sarah noticed. She'd catch me staring out the window, lost in thought, and squeeze my hand. You don't have to do anything else, she said one night, stirring pasta on the stove. You already showed him who you are. Maybe, I said, chopping onions for the sauce. But Kayla's still out there, acting like she's the victim. I can't let that stand. Sarah nodded, didn't push. She knew me better than anyone, knew when I was set on something, there was no talking me out. I'd spent years being the guy who fixed things, who paid up and stayed quiet. Now, I was done fixing. I was building something new, starting with the truth. I started digging, not like a cop or nothing, just using what I had. The files on that USB drive were a goldmine: texts, emails, even a spreadsheet tracking wedding expenses that didn't add up. Half the vendors I'd paid were fake, just shell names Danny and Kayla used to funnel cash to Greg's consulting gig. But there was more. One email from Kayla to Danny, sent a month before the wedding, stuck out. Make sure Tom doesn't see the guest list. Sarah's drama would ruin everything. Drama? Sarah never raised her voice, never gave them a reason to hate her. That's when it hit me, Kayla wasn't just greedy. She was scared of Sarah, scared of anyone who saw through her act. I decided to take it to her, but not like with Danny. He got a face-to-face 'cause he's my brother, blood or not. Kayla? She didn't deserve that kind of respect. I wanted her to feel what I felt when I read that message telling me to leave my wife behind, exposed, small, caught. So, I planned something different. First, I made copies of the key files, texts, the spreadsheet, that email about Sarah. I printed M out, clean and clear, and put M in a plain folder. Then I tracked down Greg. Wasn't hard. He had a website for his consulting business, all flashy buzzwords and stock photos. I called, left a message saying I had info he'd want about Danny Miller. He called back in an hour, voice nervous. What's this about? He asked. Meet me, I said, naming a coffee shop downtown. You'll see. He showed up the next day, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Skinny guy, cheap suit. I was darting like a cornered animal. I slid the folder across the table. Read it, I said. He flipped through, face going white. Where'd you get this? He stammered. Don't matter, I said. What matters is you and Danny thought you could play me. I paid for a wedding. You got a side deal. He started babbling excuses, half-truths about misunderstandings. I cut him off. I ain't here to argue. I'm here to tell you it's done. And Kayla's next. Greg leaned forward, sweaty. Look, man, I didn't know it was your money, I swear. Save it, I said, standing up. You're lucky I'm not calling a lawyer. Stay away from my family. I left him there, folder in hand. Didn't care what he did with it, run to Danny, hide, whatever. My focus was Kayla. She was still posting online, playing the heartbroken bride, blaming family drama for her ruined day. The hashtag #MoneyShotWedding video was everywhere, 2 million views now, with memes and reaction clips piling up. She turned off comments, but I knew she was reading stewing. Good. I wanted her rattled. I waited till Friday, when I knew she'd be at her yoga studio. She'd posted about it, all healing through movement nonsense. I drove over, parked across the street, and watched her walk out, all zen and smug in her leggings and smoothie cup. I didn't go in. Didn't need to. I'd already mailed her a package, same folder I gave Greg, plus a little extra, a printed screenshot of her email about Sarah, blown up big, with a note in my handwriting. You wanted a spotlight. Here it is. I'd paid for express delivery, so it hit her apartment that morning. I pictured her opening it, her face falling as she saw her own words staring back. No way to spin it, no crowd to charm. Just her, alone with the truth. I didn't need to see it happen. Knowing it did was enough. When I got home, Sarah was in the backyard, weeding the garden. She looked up, wiped dirt off her hands. You do it? She asked. Yeah, I said, sitting on the porch steps. Sent her the proof. Let her choke on it. Sarah studied me, then nodded. Feel better. I thought about it. Not better. Just free. That night, my phone pinged. A text from Tara, of all people. Kayla's freaking out. What did you send her? I didn't reply. Didn't need to. But later, Sarah showed me Kayla's latest post, a vague apology about mistakes and needing space. No hashtags, no filters. The comments were brutal, people calling her out, linking the wedding video, asking what she was hiding. She deleted it an hour later. I poured myself a beer, sat on the couch with Sarah. Think she'll come clean? Sarah asked, curling up next to me. Nah, I said. She'll run. But she can't outrun this. And she didn't. By morning, word spread Kayla had left town, crashing with a cousin upstate. Danny was still at his buddies, dodging calls. The family group chat, the one I'd left, was a mess, according to Tara. Everyone pointing fingers, no one owning up. I didn't care. I'd spent too long carrying their weight. Now, I was letting it drop. But there was one last piece to settle Mom and Dad. They'd been radio silent since storming out, probably thinking they could guilt me into crawling back. They didn't know me anymore. Not this Tom. Not the one who'd finally said enough. I've always thought family's supposed to be your anchor, something to hold you steady when the world gets rough. For years, I tried to be that for Mom, Dad, Danny, even Kayla. Paid their bills, swallowed their slights, kept the peace no matter what. But anchors can drag you under if you let them. After everything, the wedding, the USB drive, Kayla's downfall, I realized I'd been drowning for too long. It was time to cut the rope. A week after I sent Kayla that package, things were still raw. The hashtag MoneyShot wedding video had passed 3 million views, spawning parodies and think pieces about wedding disasters. Kayla was gone, holed up with her cousin, and Danny was laying low, probably hoping I'd cool off. Mom and Dad hadn't called since they stormed out, but I knew they'd come around eventually. They always did when they needed something. Except this time, I wasn't waiting for their knock. Sarah and I were doing all right. Better than all right. We started small things, movie nights, long walks, fixing up the backyard. Stuff we'd put off, cause I was too busy bailing out Danny or stressing about family drama. One morning, over pancakes, Sarah looked at me and said, "You're different now. Lighter." I flipped a pancake, grinned. That a nice way of saying I'm less of a pushover? She laughed, stole a bite from my plate. Something like that. But there was one last thing to settle. I couldn't just walk away from Mom and Dad without saying my piece. Not for them, for me. I needed to close the door clean, no loose ends. So, I wrote them a letter. Not an email, not a text. Pen and paper, old school. Took me 2 hours, sitting at the kitchen table, scratching out words till they felt right. I didn't yell, didn't curse. Just laid it out. How I'd spent years carrying their weight. How they let Danny and Kayla use me. How that message about Sarah was the final straw. I told him I was done. Not angry, just done. I love you. I wrote, but I'm choosing my life now. Me and Sarah. Don't call unless you're ready to respect that. I mailed it. No return address. Felt strange, like signing my name to a new contract, one where I set the terms. Sarah watched me drop it in the mailbox, her arm looped through mine. Think they'll read it? She asked. Maybe, I said. Don't matter if they do. It's for me. She squeezed my arm, and we walked home, the air crisp with fall. That night, we booked a trip. Nothing fancy, just a cabin in the Smoky Mountains. First vacation in years where I wasn't checking my phone for family emergencies. I could already picture it. Me and Sarah by a fire. No voices in my head telling me I owed anybody anything. A couple days later, something unexpected happened. My cousin Nate, the one who'd stayed out of the wedding mess, showed up at our door. He looked nervous, holding a bottle of whiskey like a peace offering. Can we talk? He said. I let him in, poured us both a glass. Sarah gave us space, heading upstairs with a book. Nate sat on the couch, fidgeting. I saw what happened, he started. The video, the fallout. Heard about Danny and Kayla, too. I should have said something sooner. Said what? I asked, leaning back. He sighed, ran a hand through his hair. They've been working you for years, Tom. I saw it. Danny's schemes, your folks enabling him. I didn't speak up because I didn't want the drama. But that thing with Sarah? That was wrong. I'm sorry. I nodded, took a sip. Appreciate that. But it's done now. He looked surprised, like he expected me to chew him out. You're really walking away? From all of them? Not walking, I said. Building something better. You're here, ain't you? That's a start. Nate smiled, a little sad but real. We talked a while, not about the past, just life, his job, my plans, the whiskey in our glasses. When he left, he hugged me. First time since we were kids. You're a good guy, Tom, he said. Don't let him forget it. After he was gone, I thought about what he said. Good guy. I'd heard it my whole life. But it used to mean something else. Someone who says yes, who takes the hit. Now, it meant something new. A guy who chooses what matters, who fights for it, who lets the rest fall away. Weeks passed. No word from mom or dad. Danny sent one text. I'm sorry, man. But I didn't reply. Kayla's social media went dark, and word was she'd split with Danny for good. The family chat fizzled out, or so Nate told me. I didn't check. Didn't need to. My world was right here. Sarah, our house, the life we were making. The trip to the Smokies was everything I'd hoped. We hiked trails, cooked over a fire, laughed till our sides hurt. One night, under a sky full of stars, Sarah raised her glass of wine and said, "To us." No strings attached. I clinked my beer against her glass. "To us," I echoed. And to never going back. When we got home, there was a letter waiting. Mom's handwriting, shaky but clear. I opened it, Sarah beside me. It was short. "We read your letter. We're sorry, Tom. We didn't see how much we hurt you. We'd like to talk, when you're ready. We love you and Sarah." No excuses, no demands. First time I could remember them saying sorry without a but. I set it down, looked at Sarah. "What do you think?" I asked. She shrugged, smiled. "It's a start. Up to you if you want to open that door." I didn't answer right away. Didn't need to. For now, the door was closed, and I was okay with that. I'd spent too long carrying a family that didn't carry me back. Maybe one day we'd talk, maybe not. But I wasn't the guy waiting for their approval anymore. I was Tom, Sarah's husband, Nate's cousin, my own man. And that was enough. I framed Mom's letter, hung it in my workshop next to my tools. Not a trophy, just a reminder. I'd fought for my life and won. Every Friday, me and Sarah toast to it. Her wine, my beer, a quiet promise to keep choosing us. The world kept turning, the video faded from the internet, and life got simple again. Not perfect, but mine. And for the first time, I wouldn't trade it for anything.